Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing? Jersey. So you're the first one here as usual. So how's everybody doing tonight? Everybody have a good 4th of July. Do anything exciting? Thank you, Jersey. Yeah, so you tell by the title. So I just do something that's kind of casual, and it is the Hangover edition. So I'm having a little bit of, hair of the Canadian dog that bit me. About last week, somebody actually requested this song, or not this song, this group. I believe it was Chord. Oh, Matthew, welcome. Edmonton, Canada. Cool. Yeah, so we're going to look at So Far Away by Stained. This is it's a pretty easy song, but it's actually a pretty cool song. So it's if you're a beginner, it should be pretty easy to pick up. So as usual, there is there's a link in the description where you can download the tabs. Jersey, talk back. D, what are you talking about, man? Alrighty then. Yeah, so sure to click that link in the description so you can download the tabs, and we can take a look at this. Everything I say repeats. Okay. That must be some kind of like a connection thing or whatever. Nothing I can do about that I'm aware of anyway. All right. So for this, we're actually only, let me make sure that I'm remembering correctly. All right, so for the vast majority of the song, there's only 4 chords for the biggest majority of it, and technically only 3 because one of them is D and then D suspended 4, so it's basically the same thing. And then in the interlude, there's 2 additional chords, so pretty easy. And these are just basic chords that I'm sure that you've probably already learned, or used in other songs or whatever. If you've been following any of this, we've done lots of songs that use these chords. So we've got E minor, and it's just your regular old, just open position E minor. And then we have a C add 9. So the C add 9 is really easy. If you just take your G major shape, and for this G major that we're using in this, you don't have to get the 3rd fret there on the B string, but that's the way they're doing it. So to make C add 9, you just take this shape and you just move your 1st and 2nd finger up a string each. So it'll move your 2nd finger to the 3rd fret of the A string and your 1st finger to the 2nd fret of the D string. Yeah, so the E minor, the C add 9 and the G, and then D and D suspended 4. So D suspended 4, for anybody who doesn't know, you just take your regular D major chord and you just add your pinky here onto the 3rd fret of the high E string. Just keep your middle finger where it is. So those are the chords that we'll be using for, like I said, for the most part. And then later on, it has a bridge section that has two more additional chords. Okay, so it starts off, it's got this intro, and the intro and the verse is very similar to the same thing. And also, by the way, this rendition of this is like the acoustic version of this song. So it's a little bit different. Mostly in the chorus, it doesn't have, uh, in the chorus, they're doing like all this power chord stuff with chords that, move down like that. But we're not going to be doing that part. This is just all, like I said, what's on there, like unplugged version of it. So we're going to start off with the E minor, and then we're going to go to the C add 9, and then the G, and then the D. So I'm going to show you a way that, if you're a beginner, that can help you to make those transitions easier. You said a mouthful there, Matthew. Yeah, that is the trick, is making the transition. So hopefully what I'm going to explain here, maybe this can kind of help. The key to making good smooth transitions is being a minimalist. Like, you don't want to move any more than you absolutely have to. So this chord progression is kind of nice, because if we do E minor, but instead of using your second and third finger, if you use your first and second finger. Now, when you see me play it, I will be playing it this way for the most part, probably. Sometimes I might do it like that, only because I played this way for a really long time before I started thinking of some of these, like these shortcuts. C major to G major, yeah. So that's an example of a chord that what I'm about to go over won't work with, but I'll come back to that and give you a couple of things that you can try. So if you do the E minor like this, when you switch to C add 9, it makes the transition. You don't have to take off all your fingers. You could actually do the E minor this way, which I'm not really a big fan of, but if you were like totally green, this would be a way that you could kind of get through this. So if you put your first finger on the D string and your second finger on the A string, so both on the second fret for E minor, when you go to make the transition to C add 9, your first finger doesn't have to come off. You just have to add your other fingers. So your middle finger will move up one fret, and then your third finger will drop to the third fret of the B string, and your fourth finger to the third fret of the high E string. And then when we transition from C add 9 to G, all you have to do is move your first and second finger down. And then when we transition from G to D, your ring finger is already where it needs to be. So when you make the changes, you never end up having to remove all of your fingers at the same time. So Matthew, that obviously isn't going to work when you're switching from C to G. So the other kind of thing that, so I'm going to kind of step away a little bit away from the song for just a second, just to kind of answer Matt's thing here. And this really could help, everybody. When you learn chords, you're like, okay, it's a C chord. See, so my first finger goes here, my second finger. So what ends up happening is that you end up, when you go to play the chords, you put your fingers down one at a time in the order in which you learned them. And you can get to where you can do that like really, really quickly, but it's still not, it's just not efficient. It's not a smooth way to make the changes. So if you were trying to play from C to G and you were doing that, that's going to slow you down. What you want is one transition like this between all your fingers at the same time. So a little exercise, and this is kind of a yawn-a-thon of an exercise, but it really does work, is put your fingers on for C, give it a strum, make sure it sounds, let your ear tell you if you're doing it right. And then you can watch your hand, your fingering hand while you do this. Try to lift all three fingers off about maybe a half of an inch, but try to keep the shape of the chord. When you lift your fingers up, they're probably going to want to just go back to being next to each other because that's just where they naturally want to sit. So if you do it this way and you kind of keep that shape, set it back down, strum, it still sounds good, so I know that I'm doing it correctly. When you lift your fingers up, often what will happen is that since they want to be being back side by side, is your index finger will move up to the first fret of the G string. Now that obviously doesn't sound right, so at that point you can go, oh, okay. But here's the thing, as you do this for 5 minutes. Warm up, do this for 5 minutes a day, and after a couple of days, kind of just depending on where you are now, your skill level now, you're going to get pretty good at it. Then go higher. Try lifting an inch, couple of inches, until you can lift your fingers off and just grab the chord. Now, if you do this with C, the other chords kind of somewhat fall into line. D and or G, sometimes there's an issue there, but it's usually not a big deal. But there's anything I'd have to see you playing it to see it or whatever. But if you get that down, and then you practice making changes like this, where set your metronome up so you're doing this on each beat, and do it really slow if you have to. You're better off to do it really slow correctly than kind of fast not so good, because then you kind of, in a sense, you start practicing mistakes. Hello, Lynn. Let's see. I'm hearing about muscle memory, still not there yet. Pretty sure practice is the answer. Yes, Matthew, practice. I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's the answer, but it's how you practice too. I mean, anytime you're playing, you're practicing and you're getting better no matter what. But sometimes you really have to isolate these things. So I think this thing with that chord is really good. If you do it with C, the other chords kind of fall into place, and then start working with making those changes that are difficult. And then sometimes also, like what I was doing here with E minor, using not the traditional way you play it, which the fingers, sometimes you can switch them around depending upon the chord progression, and you can make a song that was difficult for you very easy, like immediately, just by doing that, sometimes by changing up which fingers you use. All right. So on the intro, and there are two completely separate guitar parts happening at the same time. So you have the one guitar that's doing like the just kind of doing the strum thing, and then you have another one doing the little melody over the top of it. Earlier today, I started kind of messing around with a fingerstyle rendition of this that would incorporate that little melody into it. So that's something I might work on here in the future. But this the strumming part we're going to look at first. Also, I guess I should mention, for those of you who maybe have never seen this, if you look at this, you can see that the first and the second staff are connected together. On the left side, you can see that the line goes all the way through. And then the top staff says guitar 1, bottom staff says guitar 2. So this is a duet. So these parts are being played at the same time. So this intro is 2 measures long, but it's just repeated, I don't know, like 4 times at the beginning of it, I think. And then it would go into the verse. So if you're playing guitar 1, you would just play that top line back and forth until it was time to go to the verse. And when it goes to the verse, it's the same chord progression, but it's just how he strums. So guitar 1 is Aaron Lewis's part. So I think it is what it is when he starts singing, he just kind of simplifies the strumming, so that way he doesn't have to put so much focus onto that. It'll make more sense when we get to that part. Rumble by Link Way. I can't. God, I'm going blind. Never heard of that one. Hello, David. Welcome. England? Nice. Yeah, so like if you're transitioning from D major to B7, like this B7 here, that's a pretty tough change. But if you watch, see how I'm like making the chord shape on the way there in the air. So that way I try to land all my fingers at the same time. That's definitely a little bit more difficult of a transition than the garden variety one, like the ones we're looking at it in this song. Okay, so for this intro, so we start with the E minor, and so this is okay. Another thing too. Song is in 6/8, so that's like 3/4. It's got 3 beats, but the emphasis is 1 and 2 and 3, and so we start with the E minor, and we're going to play that for beat 1. So we're going to get an 8th note and then 4 16th notes. It's like now on here, you don't have to worry about being like super precise where it's showing, oh, he's hitting the D and the G string at the same time. If you go to do that and you hit the G and the B string at the same time, or the D, G, and B string at the same time, it's just not a huge deal because those notes are in the chord, and this isn't what is creating the melody. I think he just played it this way to make it more interesting. When we move on to the verse part, which is a little bit easier as far as the rhythm goes, you could technically just play that for the intro as well. It's not really going to sound all that different. So the E minor, then you switch to a C add 9, and it's going to be the exact same timing. So an 8th note and then 4 16th notes. Same idea. So right there, I just did that backwards, kind of the last part. I ended on the G string, and it actually ends on the A string. It's just not a huge deal, especially if that little melody is being played over it. Obviously, you can't do both at the same time, at least in this rendition of it. Yeah, so that's your first measure and half of that progression. So you got that. Then we're going to go to a G. So same thing, 1/8, 4 16th notes. Then to a D, and this is the only part where it's actually timing is different. We're just going to start just with hitting the D string, and this is an 8th note. Then the G string is a 16th note, and then you're going to hit the high E strings and do a hammer on with your pinky down to the 3rd fret, because that's D suspended 4. And then it just repeats. So you get that. Now, I said like getting that rhythm is kind of tough because on the verse it's the same thing, but it's more like makes it a little bit easier to play. So when we go over that part here in a minute, I said if you're a beginner, then you might want to do that on this intro part. So before we move on to guitar 2 for the intro, I want to show you a little melody too. Does anybody have any questions about this? It's weird to get that timing at the end with, I'm used to having that little melody. Kind of helps you to keep it together. All right. So for this little melody, it is actually using the triad shapes that we've looked at before on here. So if any of you have were here for that, or you maybe already know the triads, we got this whole little melody. So we start off, we've got the minor triad shape that's based on the first three strings. So it's an E minor. So ninth fret of the G string with your third finger, eighth fret of the B string with your second finger, seventh fret of the high E string with your first finger. Now it's got the exact same timing as the strumming part did. Well, except at the very end, it has one slight little difference, but I'll show you that in a second. So with this, we're going to start at the top of it. So we're going the high E string, and it's a sixth or an eighth note. And then we've got 16th notes for the rest of the way up to that. So this first note just rings out longer. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, now the next one we've got is a to C major in the first inversion. So what we're going to do here, we're 7, 8, 9. We're just going to move up. So now we're 8 on the high E string, 8 on the B string, and 9 on the G string with your middle finger. Now we're going to come up to the 10th fret on the high E string, 10 to 8 on the B string, to 9 on the G string. So now we've got a minor or okay, so sorry, for a minute there I thought that was wrong. I started second guessing myself. So same thing. So basically what's happening there with this little melody is that these two notes are staying the same. It's just the note, it's the highest note that is changing as we move up this. Then we're going to come down to the 5th fret. We've got 5, and then on the B string, 7, and 7 on the G string. So that's a D major with the in the root position. So. Whoops. All right, let me try that again. I keep wanting to try like descend a pentatonic lick or something. So that's all happening. You know, those two parts are happening at the same time. So if you were just playing this song alone, it would obviously make more sense to play the first guitar part than the second one. But you know, you could play it with a friend. If you have a looper, you can loop it. Use your voice recorder on your phone to record the rhythm part, and then play that over it. Lots of cool things that you can do now. Oh yeah. So as far as the timing on that last part of it, on the second measure, when we do that part, we got 8th, 16, 16, 16, 16, and then we've just got 3/8 notes. So that part's all like even. All right, so that is the intro, and that leads us into the verse. So before we go over this, does anybody have any questions about that intro? This part here is more or less the same thing as the intro. It's just guitar one rhythmically kind of changes a little bit. Anthony, hey Tony, what's going on, man? Long time. That's awesome, man. You should give me a call sometime or something. All right. So the next part here is the verse, and so like I said, it's the same thing, but now on the, instead of breaking up the, breaking up like that, we're just gonna strum the whole chord. So we've got an eighth note and then 4 16th notes. So it's like long, short, short, short. So how I do this to kind of help me to keep the groove going is I kind of will accent that first strum as a downstroke. And then I'll do down, up, down, up. So that takes care of like the first 1.5 beats, because it's broke up between 2 chords on the measure. So each one is the equivalent of 1.5 beats. Because remember, we're in 6/8. Oh, Eric, welcome. Oh, you've got a Talk Mini, whatever model this is. G something or another, or something like that. 20G maybe. I don't know. I can't read in there. I bought this in like 92 or 93. Okay, so you're gonna have that C add 9, G. Then we go to D, and we do a hammer on down to D suspended 4 for the last. So. Now, with that, you could really kind of change that up a lot, because it's the vocal melody too. When singing over it is what really kind of fills it out, especially if you don't have someone doing this part. Now, this is happening during that too. So he's like, "This is." Whatever the words are. But again, the second guitar. Same exact thing. So with this, you got the. Now again, if you did it this way, instead of you're a beginner, where you're doing the, and now this, I totally really do not recommend this, is like being like, oh, that's just how I'm going to do it. This is just kind of a way to get through it. Then all you have to do is scoot up, middle finger, drop these 2 for the C add 9, move these 2 down for G, and then up, and then back to the E minor. So when you go back to the E minor, you could keep that finger there until you drop it, because if you left it there, it'd be E minor 7, which that's not what they're doing, but it would still sound okay. goes on. I don't know how many times it repeats, just however many times it goes, through the verse, through the singing. And then it goes into the pre-chorus. So when you're coming out of the verse, you're ending on that D suspended 4, and then we come back to C add 9. So you got the whoops. Okay, so that's like the little build up before the chorus. So we just come back to the C add 9, and we have that same. The only difference is now is that it takes all of the measure that it what is that measure 5 looks like. It takes all of that, plus it takes the first half of measure 6 too. So you end up doing that 3 times. And then a D, and then that's where it leads into the chorus. So guitar 2 on this part, when it goes to the C add 9, it goes to the. It's just doing the 8, 8, 9, 8. So when it goes to the D, whoops. It's really weird. My fingers do not want to do that shape today for some reason. Probably because I don't do that one a whole lot, at least in this, with these fingers like this. So if you're a guitar 2 on the verse, you'd be. And then when it repeats, and then that's where it leads us into the chorus. So that whole verse. Pre-chorus. We go to the chorus now. So we move on to that. Any questions? I mean, really haven't done anything different since we did at the first part of it for the verse or the pre-chorus. But this is a classic example too of song having a song put together. So with these chords G, C, and D, we've got our 1, 4, 5, and G, and then we've got an E minor. So the E minor is the 6th. It's the 6th. E is the 6th degree of the G major scale, and it's a minor chord. So this progression could be like 6, 4, 5, or 1, 5. But it kind of it's got that more of like a minor sound to it. So I don't want to get into the whole thing with putting that stuff together, but those chords, you're going to always see them together a lot. If you look at a song and you're looking at the chords, and the first 3 chords you see are G, C, and D, you can pretty much count on that E minor. If there's another chord in it, it's more than likely going to be that chord. Like this is like the same chord. You could play Good Riddance, Time of Your Life by Green Day with this, because it's just the same chords. Oh, Crit, you made it. And I think you're the one that actually mentioned this last week, like when I said about if there was other ideas. I think it was you that suggested Stained. Or am I wrong? Okay, so for the chorus, yeah, okay, so you'll have to, get watch rerun for the first part, but it's pretty easy to pick up on. Okay, so when it goes to the chorus on the original version of this song, then these like heavy guitars come in. But like I said, this is like the unplugged version, so we're just going to just continue to, more like acoustic-y. So we've got our G major, and we're going to do that same strum, the 8th and then 4 16th notes. So a way that to simplify that for counting is you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you got 2 of that. D, E minor, C add 9. So that's the. So when you're playing that too, you can really change up this strum. And I know this is something we've talked about like numerous times on here, but I think it's really important is getting that strum more where you're feeling it. You're like you're drumming it out, countertop drumming it out, so you could kind of do the same thing with your, excuse my amazing vocal abilities, whoops, went to the wrong chord. So noob question, is that riff part of a major scale? Well, sort of. So when you play a major scale, what you're doing in a sense is you're just playing, you're identifying the 7 notes that are in a key. So in this case, we're just going to G major because that's the key that these are in. So each degree of the scale, there's a chord that goes along with it. So it's called a chord scale. So you've got major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, back to major. And I did a whole thing on this. I think it might have even been more than one time that I've talked about this in previous live streams. Wow, hold on a second. I'm getting behind here. So part of the major scale. So let me finish that, Matthew. So the chords that are used, we know that the notes that make up the G major scale are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and we're back to G. So we know that there's going to be a G chord in there. We know, based off those notes, G, A, B, there'll be an A chord, there's going to be a B chord, a C, a D, E, and an F sharp, and then our G. So it's a G major, and then a C major is actually the 4 chord. But when you do a C add 9, it's still just a C major chord. It just happens to have the 9th tone of the scale added. So it's basically a C chord with a D in it. Again, I don't want to get like super far into this because we've already kind of covered this before. But yeah, so to answer your question kind of in a nutshell, yes, it's based out of the major scale, but I don't think it was a thing that they sat down and like wrote it that way. That's just how, harmonically music all comes together. Why certain notes when you hear them together sound good and other certain notes you hear together don't. It all comes down to the keys, the notes relationship to each other. When you play any note by itself sounds good, right? But if you play a note and then another note, it can sound good or it can sound really bad. It just depends on on what it is. Not sure. Okay, that's a cool handle. Yep, this is a live stream every Wednesday at I guess what it is, 8 Eastern time. I think that's what time it is Eastern. Hello, Jimmy. So it is, okay, I'm not sure what you're, unless you're referring to Matt's comment. All right. So when we do the chorus, same thing. We're going to have that G, two uh, two units of that strum. If you want to play it this way is like a really straightforward, E minor, C add 9. So we're just using the same chords, we're just changing the order, and that's like an often, like if you look at a song like Every Rose Has Its Thorn, it's these chords. It's G, C add 9, and D, and then it just has one part where they go into an E minor to make it, to change it up. And then it just repeats. So when I play it, I kind of do, I thought it was a major scale. You thought what was a major scale, Jimmy? Let's see, so got that. See, when you're playing it by yourself like that, I just think it just carries better and sounds better, in my opinion, when you you make that strum more kind of unique to you, in a sense, that you're not doing it by counting, you're not doing it by thinking about doing upstrokes or downstrokes, you're just doing it by the feel. Now, as a general rule in Western music, we start on the downstroke and we end on the upstroke. So I kind of use that as kind of the template, but sometimes it doesn't work out exactly that way. Cool. What is the recommended mode to start with learning theory, keys transpose, but modes change the world? Okay, so Jimmy, so when you say riff, I want to clarify what you're talking about. So we were talking about the chord progression. So let me just kind of go with the 12 tones music theory thing kind of in a nutshell. So, and this will kind of answer your question too. Not sure. So you want to start with the major scale. The major scale is kind of like the center of the universe for how we think of music in the Western world, like how we put stuff together. Now, it doesn't mean that this is like, these aren't rules, these are guidelines. Don't think of them as rules, because sometimes, you get really cool shit by going outside, coloring outside of the lines. So if you take a major scale, you're playing the notes that are in that key. So the key of G major, since we're starting here on a G, is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then back to G, and then it would just keep repeating. And it's the same no matter what key you're in. The only thing it changes is what notes, obviously. But on the guitar, it's one thing that's nice is it's this shape no matter what. So on the low E string, 2 whole steps, A string, 2 whole steps. Then when you go to the D string, you have to shift up a half step. Half, whole, same thing on the G string. Now when we go to the B string, we shift up a half step again. Now it's a whole and a half and a whole and a half on the high E string. So 2 whole steps, half and a whole and a half. Makes it really easy to remember too. So if I was to do that starting here on A, then I would be playing an A major scale, so the notes would be different. So we'd have A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. But when you're figuring out the other part of it, like the all that is a triad is just a chord, but it's just 3 notes. So when we play this E minor chord and that little, all this is the 3 notes that make up an E minor chord. But when we play here, we're playing 6 strings, but technically we're only playing 3 notes. So the notes that make up a major chord is the 1st, 3rd, and 5th note of the scale. So if we wanted to, what are the notes that make a G major? We take the major scale. There's note 1, so we know G. We go to note 3, G, A, B. Note 4 is C, and note 5 is D. So the notes G, B, D make a G major chord. G, B, D, G, D, or B, depending upon if you play the B string opened or closed, and then another G on the top end. So that's how it works with every chord. Now to make it a minor, you flatten the 3rd. So with the G, there's our 3rd, we flatten it, so it would be B flat. So as far as the question then is if that is part of the scale. Well, it's not like it's, the notes are part of the scale. Those notes come from the scale, but it's not like, you know, oh, that's the G major scale, you know, when you're playing the chord. You could use the G major scale to like do a solo over the top of that. You know, you could improvise with it. But a lot of this stuff, I have done stuff in the past. So if you guys, you know, want to check them out, and then if there's stuff that you don't understand or whatever, you know, let me know in here. And if there's enough interest in it, I could do like a, you know, a revision of it. Yeah, but as far as like the thing with the asking what mode to start with, definitely the major scale. The major scale is the Ionian mode. You have 7 modes of the major scale, and all that means is that if I'm playing G Ionian, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So I'm starting on G and I'm ending on F sharp. If I played the second position, which is Dorian, all I do is start. I play the same notes, but now I'm just starting on the second note. So now I'm starting on A and I'm going to end on G. But I played the same notes. I mean, it's just the same notes over and over and over again. But I did like a bunch of series of like a year or so ago, boring music theory that you should know, and some chord construction things, chord progressions, done a lot of that kind of stuff in the past. But like I said, I have no problem with doing some kind of a revision of it. So, you know, look through it. And if there's stuff that you don't understand or you know, like learn more about, you know, let me know. I mean, I am all about the ideas for this. Okay, so at the end of the chorus, after it repeats, you know, then it goes into this extended part of C add 9 before it goes into the interlude. So that's on your transcription. That's measure 11, it looks like. So this here, we've got a dotted 8th note and then 3 16th notes. So instead of being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Since it's a dotted 8th note, it rings out for 1 16th note longer. So it, you know, I hate getting all into the all trying to count it because it can be confusing, and it takes a lot of the musicality out of it, makes it more like math. So we're going to have and then that goes into the interlude part. so afraid. This is where the other chords come in. So we've got the E minor, same strum. We start off with the 8th and then 4 16th notes. Then we're going to go to a D over F sharp. So you just take your D major chord, you use your thumb to pick up the 2nd fret of the low E string. The A string will be open now. So that's written as D slash F sharp. So for those of you who do not know what that means, anytime you see a chord written like that, the first letter is the chord, so a D. The second letter is the bass note. So F sharp is part of that triad. We talked about, that it's root, 3rd, and 5th. So if we go to D, we go 1, 2, 3, that's an F sharp. And then there's our 5A. So if we, I lost my place on that. If we, by using our thumb, we're picking up the F sharp there, we're getting this A. So we're getting them same notes, but the note in the bass isn't the root. The root note is the note that the chord derives its name from, first note of the major scale. So we have the E minor, D, F over F sharp to G, A minor. So this is probably one of the harder transitions in this, because going from the E minor to the D over F sharp, really no smooth segue for that. Now to G is easy, and then G to A minor is going to be another one like the C and G we talked about earlier. You're going to have to move all of your fingers to be able to make that change. And, as like we've been talking about, that can be challenging depending upon your skill level. Or sometimes it's not even skill level. There can be other things that can cause problems with that. So the E minor, D over F sharp, G, A minor, D, E minor, D over F sharp, and then it repeats. So it goes back to E minor again. D over F sharp, G, A minor, A minor, E minor, D over F sharp, C add 9. Okay, so this is the last part here. So this C add 9 here at the end, it's all. So it's like a combination of a few of the different things we did for the strum. So we've got like what we did earlier, where we had the like at the end of, where the hell was that at the end of the chorus. So we're on C add 9. We've got the 8th note, 3 16th notes. So, and then it does it another one. So and then we've just got 7 16th notes. So that's all one measure. And then the last measure, we just hit it and let it ring out as a whole note, and that's like at the end of the song. So, let's see. And that's it. Because it's a really easy song. There isn't a whole lot to it. All of the whoops. Man, I have to practice that shape. My fingers do not want to do that. All right, so that is all the parts for So Far Away by Stain. So does anybody have any questions about any of those parts, or any just other guitar related questions in general? I had a lot of questions tonight. It's kind of cool. I wasn't even really sure what to expect as far as the turnout stuff. When I got up this morning-ish, my enthusiasm, I didn't want to do anything. But little, little hair of the Canadian dog, does the trick. But never learned what I was doing or why my ability to manipulate the instrument as advanced from my understanding is left wanting to attention to. Oh, okay, not sure. Yeah, that there are lots and lots of really great players who know diddly squat, but I'm a personal believer in knowing this stuff is valuable. I mean, knowledge is power. And it's interesting. I find I used to think this kind of stuff at the beginning was somewhat boring, and I never got any of it for a really long time. I always sucked at math, so it was just always kind of a struggle. But now it's like totally tons of fun. Thank you, Tony. Totally appreciate that, and you're welcome, Crit. You are totally welcome. Yeah, as far as the triads, on my personal opinion, I think it's best to start on the E, B, and G string. So you learn your major, the root, first inversion, second inversion in your minors, and then do the same thing on the rest of your strings. Because then you can put them together and get sweeping arpeggios and lots of really, really cool stuff with that. I've done a bunch of different ones on triads. But also, if you are, let me put this down so I can actually type. If you or anybody for that matter is interested, I do guitar lessons online over Google Meet. So no matter where you are, we could set up a time and we could actually go over some of that stuff. If you'd be interested, you can email me at crap, that one doesn't work. Let's see. All right. So does anybody else have any questions, comments, anything? So good session tonight. And, I didn't say it at all tonight, but if you like what I'm doing, hit the thumbs up button. All that stuff really helps with them for me to be able to keep doing this for you. So, yeah, I appreciate everybody who came out. This was a lot of fun. It actually went a lot better than what I was expecting to. I thought maybe everybody would have a hangover and wouldn't want to play. Thank you, Jersey. Appreciate that. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate y'all being here. I plan on being here next week, same time. Don't know what we'll do. Figure that out before then. But yeah, if you have ideas for things that you'd like to see covered or whatever, leave those in the comments as well. True crime thing that says true crime 0000. Thank you for watching. You are most welcome. That's awesome. Not sure. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Thank you, Rick. I didn't even realize he was here. Paul. Good night, Crit. Well, again, thanks everybody for coming out. Really appreciate it. And I'll see y'all next week. Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe.